We are embarking on the final week of the NBA regular season, and the NBA MVP conversation is so closely tied between the Joker, Joel Embiid, and Giannis. So this is what I want you to do in the comment section down below before we start today's show. State your case as for why Joel Embiid should be the NBA's MVP. The best responses that we get in the comment section, I'll read them off on the next show. So without further ado, you do that, and I'll do my thing. Let's talk some Sixers basketball right now. Welcome in to Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Senior. Hope all of you had a great weekend. Only a couple games remaining in the NBA regular season for the Philadelphia 76ers, and Joel Embiid continues to play marvelous basketball as he's been doing all throughout the 2021-2022 campaign. And as we know, the NBA MVP race is so neck and neck right now between Embiid, Nikola, Jokic, as well as Giannis. And Embiid, after he just put forward a great performance in a victory against the Cleveland Cavaliers, spoke with the media and said, look, I don't know what else I have to do to be named NBA MVP. I think there's an anti-Philadelphia bias in NBA MVP voting. He feels as though people are siding with the Joker. They're siding with Giannis Antetokounmpo. But we're going to look at some numbers and state the case for why Embiid can and should win NBA MVP. And we're having that conversation after he just gave Cleveland the business. Every game that he's pretty much played against the Cavaliers this year, he's been awesome. Yes, Cleveland was without Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley. Lauri Markkanen was guarding Embiid for a lot of that ball game, and he had him in his pocket. 44 points, 17 boards, 5 blocks, 17 of 20 from the free throw line. That had Cleveland coach J.B. Bickerstaff in his feelings, saying, look, we had that game taken away from us. Actually, I think Matisse Thybulle took the game away from Cleveland with that awesome steal and dish to Tobias Harris late in that game when the Sixers were holding a 3-point advantage at the time. Now, Embiid has gone on to have a historic season, and there's no question he's in the thick of things in the NBA MVP conversation, and he should be considered one of the most dominant players in the NBA, and he certainly can win the award. Historic season for Embiid according to ESPN Stats and Info. How about this? Embiid has 11 games now after that Cleveland performance with at least 40 points and 10 rebounds this year. Only Russell Westbrook, 12, and Moses Malone, 12, had more in a single season since the 76-77 merger. In both instances, both Russell Westbrook and Moses Malone, the former Sixers great, went on to win MVPs in those seasons. But were those seasons closely tied like this year's MVP race? Probably not, because there is a lot of depth in the MVP conversation. Now, we talked about what Embiid said about that anti-Philadelphia bias. Here's the exact quote. If it happens and I win it, great. If it doesn't, I don't know what I have to do. I'll feel like they hate me. I feel like the standard for guys in Philly or for me is different than everyone else. Last year, Embiid was runner-up to the Joker. Now he might be runner-up once again. Before we continue to break this down, I want to hear from you in the comment section once more. Treat it like a 94 WIP or 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Talk Radio call-in line and engage with us. Is there an anti-Philadelphia basis like what Embiid said? Bias, excuse me. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Let me know in the comment section right now. Now, ESPN's latest straw poll for the MVP race, it has the Joker overtaking Embiid. That happened last week. Embiid is number 2 in their MVP race right now. Giannis is at number 3, followed by Ja Morant and Jason Tatum. I disagree that Ja should be number 4. I think Tatum should be 4, and Luka Doncic should be number 5. That's my personal opinion, but that's ESPN's latest straw poll. As for how Embiid and the Joker compare, when they met back a couple weeks ago at the Wells Fargo Center, I don't know how you watch that game and come away from it saying the Joker is better than Embiid. Now, the Nuggets did get the victory, and that is part of the NBA MVP conversation, but you take a look at the side-by-side numbers here between Embiid as well as Jokic, and it's really, really close, and it's going to come down to the wire. It's going to come down to the final weekend of the regular season with a couple of games left. Team record, it's right there. 48-30 for Embiid, 47-32 for the Joker and the Nuggets. Points per game, Embiid has the advantage there. by about 3 points. Rebounds goes to Nikola Jokic, and it's understandable because he's an excellent rebounding big. Assists also goes to the Joker because he's a better passer than Joel Embiid. But here you go. Blocks going to Embiid as well. So I think Embiid is the better all-around offensive player. He's the better defensive player, and especially when he's engaged and putting effort toward defensive basketball, he's one of the most dominant defensive players in the NBA. I don't think the same can be said for the Joker. Now, what the NBA MVP conversation could also come down to is where the seedings are for both teams. And everything's so closely contested in the East as well as the West. Games played siding with the Joker as well. That could help him in the mix of this conversation. But when you watch games, Joel Embiid pops way more than Jokic, and I don't think it's close. And of course, Embiid is the more flashy player. He's the more twitchy and dynamic athlete. He can overtake opponents physically as compared to the Joker, who's an excellent passer, one of the best passers that I've ever seen, and can impact games in a variety of ways. And both of these guys have dealt with extenuating circumstances, right? Embiid with the Ben Simmons drama. Jokic has had to play without Jamal Murray this year. I think the Embiid-Simmons drama, a little bit more problematic because the Sixers as a team could have cratered, and they didn't. And at times, they've been the number one team in the Eastern Conference when you look at the standings. And yes, the West, led by the Phoenix Suns, nobody's catching them. Denver hasn't really been atop the Western Conference standings, but I'd side with Embiid with that particular argument. Now, we've been talking a lot about the Joker as well as Embiid throughout today's show, whether or not one of those two guys should be the NBA MVP. Honestly, I think there's a case to be made that Giannis is the actual MVP. He's coming off an NBA championship where he was the NBA Finals MVP. The Bucks have had to deal with a lot of injuries, and in the biggest games and in the biggest moments, Giannis has been able to come through. I mean, what he did against the Nets and KD the other night was terrific. He saved that game against Philadelphia with the block on Joel Embiid, and in high-leverage games, I think the Bucks and Giannis have been a little bit better, and they've been flip-flopping in the standings with the Sixers. Look, it all comes down to the fact that this is one of the most closely tied NBA MVP conversations that we've ever had in the history of this great league. Let's pivot back, though, to Embiid and Jokic because those are really the two front runners as of now. So who's more worthy of winning MVP between these two players here to my right? J.E. for Joel Embiid, NJ for Nikola Jokic. Sound off in the comment section right now. Today's show brought to you by our sportsbook partner, BetUS. Right now, you can get a 125% deposit bonus by going to chatsports.com/bet and enter the promo code chat125. Let's just say, and you don't have to put down $100, but let's say you put down $100 using that link in that promo code. You get an additional $125 back. That's $225 to game with. And yeah, as we record this on Monday, a fantastic NCAA tournament championship game is coming your way between North Carolina and Kansas. I like North Carolina getting points at 4.5. I think their guard play is superior to Kansas, and I really like what they have going down low with Baycott as well as Brady Manick. So I'm going with UNC plus 4.5, over-under set at 151.5. It's a pretty high number. Do you like Kansas? Do you like UNC? Do you like the over-under? Either way, get those bets in, and you tell me. Chatsports.com/bet. Enter that promo code at chat125. BetUS, the best deal that any sportsbook has to offer. Moving on from Joel Embiid to who might back up Joel Embiid the last week of the regular season, maybe into the playoffs. Now, we know by now that Doc Rivers does not like to play younger players, and that's why Charles Bassey, that's why B-Ball Paul Reed, they haven't gotten a lot of minutes as that backup to Embiid. Instead, it's gone to DeAndre Jordan. And before that, Willie Cauley-Stein. And before that, Andre Drummond. And the trade for James Harden depleted the Sixers' depth to a certain degree. They have certainly missed Andre Drummond. DeAndre Jordan is washed. He gave them pretty good minutes against the Charlotte Hornets the other night, but it's the Charlotte Hornets. So, can Charles Bassey be Embiid's backup as compared to a DJ or a Paul Millsap? Those minutes against Giannis last week. Oh, absolutely brutal. But we're having this conversation because Charles Bassey went off over the weekend against the Herd. for the Delaware Blue Coats, in the NBA G League. 37 points, 21 boards, 2 blocks, 13 of 16 from the floor. And yes, stats are inflated at the NBA G League level. There are international leagues that are better than the competition in the NBA G League. But either way, Charles Bassey was a walking bucket in 31 minutes. He's put up a lot of big performances so far this year for the Delaware Blue Coats as he's gone back and forth between the G League and the NBA level. And I liked him coming out of Western Kentucky. I like the selection that Daryl Morey put forward by taking Charles Bassey. And can he give you better minutes as a backup than DeAndre Jordan? Yes, it's the G League, but these non-Embiid minutes really do concern me in the NBA playoffs. I thought the Sixers back in 2019, they got gashed anytime they had to go with Greg Monroe when Embiid had to just get a breather and go to the bench. And I worry that that same situation could rear its ugly head if you have DeAndre Jordan on the floor and teams just decide to carve him up and pinpoint him and pick on him during the guts of the game or when Embiid is not on the floor. Why I like Paul Reed and Charles Bassey more than DeAndre Jordan, they're younger, a little bit more springy, have more athleticism, more explosiveness, and the effort can make up for the lack of experience. Of course, DJ has more experience, and Doc Rivers is siding with him because of that reason. But I'd rather go with the Bassey or a Paul Reed because I think they give you a little bit more of a spark, a little bit more spunk on both ends of the floor. Remaining schedule for Philadelphia. Let's break it down before we hop on out of here. At Indiana on Tuesday, at Toronto on the 7th. Something to monitor here. Not every player on the Sixers is vaccinated. So if there's a first-round series between Philadelphia and Toronto, those players who are not vaccinated will not be able to play games in Toronto. That's a big problem, not just for the Sixers, but any team that matches up with Toronto in the NBA playoffs. 9th against the Pacers, and then the Sixers round out their regular season schedule on the 10th against the Detroit Pistons, trying to avenge that ugly loss from the other night. Now, we know that the Eastern Conference standings, man, every team is so jumbled on top of one another. So which opponent do you want the most in the first round? I'd love to see Philly go up against Cleveland because they've had their number this year. I would also like the Chicago Bulls. A first-round series I wouldn't like a matchup with is the Brooklyn Nets or the Boston Celtics. You let me know in the comment section. Appreciate all of you for watching today's show. Don't forget to subscribe. We're about 300 people away from 6,000.